In January, an IDF missile strike killed 2 Palestinian journalists and wounded 2 Palestinian freelance journalists. The Israeli military claimed that the group was an immediate threat. But yesterday, the Washington Post published an investigation that casts serious doubt on the IDF's assertions. Here's what we know for sure about what happened. The 2 men who were killed were Hamza Dahdouh, who was 27, and Mustafa Thuraya, who was 30, both of whom were members of an Al Jazeera crew. The 2 men who were wounded were Muhammad al-Kawaji and Hazem Rajab. On the morning of January 7th, the 4 journalists traveled to a family home that had recently been hit by an IDF airstrike. The IDF claimed that the home was being used as an office by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Thuraya had a drone in the air by 10:39 a.m. The Post obtained footage from Thuraya's drone, which was a consumer model that you can buy at Best Buy. The Post found that no Israeli soldiers, aircraft, or other military equipment are visible in that footage. But here's what you can see. The clips show reporters in blue press vests surveying a mass of mangled wires and concrete. Children watch as men pull out bodies. Civil defense workers drape blankets over the dead and carry them away. And the Post did even more digging, thankfully. 2 analysts reviewed available satellite imagery of the area taken by Planet Labs and Airbus on January 7th, covering a radius of roughly 1.2 miles from where the drone was launched. Neither expert saw any evidence of military deployments or militant activity. Now keep those facts in mind as we continue. Just after 11 a.m., the site of the airstrike was hit with a second strike. The 4 journalists fled, trailing an ambulance that was carrying injured journalists. 10 minutes later, the car carrying the 4 journalists was hit with an airstrike. Eyewitness videos show the grisly aftermath. Thuraya and the driver of the car were torn apart by the strike. Kawaji was on the ground, bleeding heavily as medics scrambled to assemble a stretcher for him. The freelancer's face was burned and his jaw was split open. Rajab had severe burns and lost the use of an eye. Then the IDF quickly began to try to spin the story. And the IDF said in a statement that its aircraft had identified and struck a terrorist who operated an aircraft that posed a threat to IDF troops. But the next day, IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari appeared to backtrack. Every journalist that dies, it's unfortunate, he told NBC, saying the drone had made them look like terrorists. Then, in a new statement on January 10th, the IDF said that the drone had posed an immediate threat to nearby soldiers, though the strike occurred approximately 15 minutes after Thuraya had stopped recording. The Post shared Thuraya's footage with the Israeli military and asked if it could identify any moments when the drone posed a threat to its troops. We have nothing more to add, the IDF said. In addition, the IDF claimed that Dahdouh and Thuraya were members of terrorist groups. The January 10th statement also linked to a document dated June 2022 with the logo and name of Al-Quds Brigade, the military wing of Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Dahdouh's name appeared next to a line item for $224. Eric Stair, a historian and postdoctoral researcher at the University of Oslo, who has written a book on the history of the PIJ, stated that the use of language on the document, particularly the phrasing of geographic areas, was unusual, as was the mix of English and Arabic text in a document supposedly intended for internal use. The IDF also stated that they had a document that listed Thuraya as the squad deputy commander in the Al-Qadisiyeh battalion of Hamas's Gaza City brigade, but did not publicly release that document. Al Jazeera has, of course, denied both accusations against the reporters, and it's worth noting that both cleared their security checks by the IDF in the weeks before their deaths. They have traveled through checkpoints throughout the city, and Dahdouh even obtained permission to leave Gaza altogether. I mean, Cenk, this is just another story of the IDF doing something, lying about it to the media, spinning it, and months, weeks later, we then find out the truth. It's an unfortunate tale, but it's happened time and time again.
Yes. So now let's review what happened. Now, Jordan told you a lot of it there, but look at all those lies by the IDF. And if you still think that they're not lying, Come on, brothers and sisters. So they say, oh, these guys are no good terrorists. Here, we have this one piece of evidence. And then an expert looks at it and goes, it's like mixed with Arabic and English. Yeah, Hamas is writing in English. I mean, that's so, you're not even trying. It's like the worst propaganda in the world. They're terrorists, but you let them in and out of Gaza, which is like the hardest. Gaza's so hard to get into. But the IDF was like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah, well, you're on a terrorist list, but go ahead, go in, come out. There's 0% chance of that, none. Oh, the militants were around and we were so worried about our lives, that's why we had to murder them. I mean, kill them, I mean, execute them. I mean, oh my God, we were so worried. Then the Washington Post looks at all the drone footage. There's no militants around anywhere. There's no fighting around anywhere. There's no military planes or anything else around at all. Lie after lie after lie. So now, why are they doing this? Well, they've killed now over 90 journalists, more than any conflict in decades. So we talk about how sometimes the Russian government, both tragically and their explanations are hilarious, but kill journalists that say things against Putin, and it's heart-wrenching and disgusting in so many ways. But they'll say like, oh, they tripped and fell out a window and stuff, and we know that it's perilous being a brave, honest journalist in Russia. Well, Israel has killed a lot more journalists than the Russians have, than literally anyone has. And they keep saying, oh, oops, it was yet another accident. Shireen Abu Akleh assassinated. And even the American government seems to acknowledge, of course, they'd never do anything about it. There's no sanctions, they would continue to give them money, etc. But shot in the neck by a sniper, murdered. No other fighting around. As usual, the IDF lies were completely exposed. None of it was true. They assassinated her. And so they don't want any drones in the sky. Now you might say, oh, well, they're worried about military, etc. Well, why was this, again, was this drone shown to have any weapons or be anywhere near a conflict? No, because they don't want people seeing how badly they've slaughtered the Gazans and how destroyed Gaza is. So if you had killed 31,000 people, 25,000 women and children, would you want the whole world to see their bodies? No, of course you wouldn't want that. And you know what happened after they, in my opinion, executed these journalists? And look, you see the evidence here. You can call it any word you like. Killed, murdered, executed. I guess if you're like deluded Israeli supporter, oops, they did it. They accidentally killed more and more and more and more journalists. Golly gee, they're just the most incompetent military in the world. Okay, you call it anything you like. But guess what happened? Journalists stopped using drones. Mission accomplished. That's what the IDF wanted. They wanted to shut off images of their brutality and their war crimes, and they shut them off. And then more and more journalists obviously started leaving the Gaza Strip because they were targets. The IDF, I mean, how many times do they have to execute journalists before you begin to realize they don't want journalists in Gaza Strip to see and document their crimes? And that is what it is in Gaza, war crimes. And yes, executing journalists is also a war crime and is also not what a democracy does or what an ally of America is supposed to do. But of course, the response from the Republicans and the Democrats will be like, no, I'm gonna give them more money. No, I'm gonna give them more money. Oh, they executed journalists? Send them 14 billion, 17 billion. Mike Johnson today saying that he wants to invite Netanyahu to speak and address Congress. So there's no accountability for IDF's war crimes. And then sometimes people ask me, hey, why don't you go to Israel and check out what's happening? Are you insane? I would not like to be murdered. And I don't know if I would be killed in Israel proper, but there's some chance. If I was in the Gaza Strip, a Muslim journalist in the Gaza Strip, no, I would not like the world's, one of the most despotic governments, the one that has literally targeted and murdered journalists more than any other country. to take a pot shot at me and execute me there. So no, I will never be going there until they end this war and the occupation. And they stop murdering journalists.
Yeah, your point about the impact of targeting journalists. I mean, I've lost track of how many they've killed or harmed or killed the families of. It is, for the people who are lucky to survive, a threat. And thankfully, there are still journalists in the Gaza Strip who are not intimidated by it, but maybe also know their days are numbered. And for the others, it's, yeah, you want to show the world what we're doing? Okay, we'll do it to you next. I mean, what were these four doing other than documenting what the IDF had done to children, to families under the rubble? These atrocities, they're broadcasting, they're doing their due diligence as a reporter to broadcast this to the world, to show the world this is the reality. Because especially early on, it was, oh, we're being very cautious. You saw IDF spokespeople on every major cable news network here in the West. Oh, we're being extremely cautious. We're definitely not killing any civilians. Even when they bombed refugee camps and just cratered entire buildings, it was, well, we told everyone to get out, and we were very cautious. And you just see the footage, and there's this moment of cognitive dissonance for any rational person. This isn't true. But then you see this propaganda to justify it, and there's always an element of it in English. It's because they want this for Western audiences. They want people to see an English anatomy textbook with, oh, we love Hamas inside, or Mein Kampf with English text. Who is that for? Who in Gaza Strip is reading in English? And it's only because these pieces of propaganda are placed because they want to disseminate them in Western media, because most reporters will just take it and run with it. Most people will believe it. And it's not until months later, like we're seeing in this case, will somebody actually fact check. And unfortunately, by that time, it's tough to build momentum to demand change. Thankfully, people who watch this, I know, are still motivated by it. But it does seem like as the war has gone on, fewer and fewer people are taking action. Fewer people are writing their member of Congress. Fewer people are showing up to protest. Fewer people are doing things that would continue to hold the Biden administration's feet to the fire on things like weapons sales, on things like supporting the IDF. So this is all a delay tactic, and it's unfortunately a masterful one, because for you to go back and think about how mad you were in January when you first heard about this story, for a lot of people, it's a challenge. Thankfully, I think TYT viewers are still upset, but for the mass majority of people, they've moved on to other things.
Yeah, I'm going to end on a couple of things here. One, I want to give you an exact quote from the Washington Post. 90 journalists and other media workers in Gaza have been killed in just over 5 months, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, the deadliest period for the profession since the group began collecting data in 1992. So some people will say, don't report on Israel's war crimes, it offends us. Well, then Israel committing the war crimes and murdering all those journalists should offend you 10,000 times more. I'll give the last word to our members. Genocide Joe wrote in, I wish I had the guts that journalists in Gaza do. Their bravery is other level. And it's true, those are the bravest people on earth. And finally, Bloated Ego said, if our government is not willing to use the enormous leverage we have in the unfettered military aid to Israel, I don't want to hear anything Biden and or Blinken has to say about the war in Gaza. Yes, if you're not using your leverage and you're giving them blank checks, then our government is helping to kill those journalists, and that disgusts me.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.